Night City, the place to go to watch your dreams die. Also the place to go to watch a man dressed as Louis de Poindulac beat a mime half to death with a cane. Yes, there are quite a few individuals walking around in a suit and cape, sporting fangs and a cane. In fact, they've even formed a gang at one point, just to pull pranks. They called themselves the Philharmonic Vampyres, and they are just one topic of today's rather short video. There wasn't much I could find pertaining to when they formed, just that they became known as the Philharmonic Vampyres a few years before the Night City 2020 sourcebook was penned in-universe. From there, they'd launch into tons of irritating pranks that were rough to clean up, as addressed in the 2020 sourcebook. These are the people who climb corporate headquarters to leave giant signs, plant gardens in convertibles left on the street, and release giant naked inflatable dolls of the governor over City Hall during his tours of Night City. Through all the irritating pranks, the vampires have not been known to exude violence towards the regular denizens of Night City. That is, unless you're dressed like a mime. See, outside being pranksters for hire for individuals like Fixers and Rocker Boys, the vampires make it a point to target members from another performative gang known as the Julliard, which we'll talk about later. They prefer to leave their more violent needs to those a little more versed in the art, most notably the Werewolves of London. I quote, "While the vamps are considered to be far more witty than dangerous, it is rumored that their membership overlaps with a more serious gang, the Werewolves of London. As much urban myth as reality, everyone knows that for the last 2 years, on nights of the full moon, at least one victim is found literally torn apart as though with tooth and claw. Witnesses have reported seeing elegant gentlemen with tuxedos and black masks in the area, and occasionally there is the report of wolves howling. Of course, the NCPD will tell you that's ridiculous." The gang also held no official control over territory, they just had some places they would frequent. These places included the Night City Symphony Hall and a tunnel system rumored to be beneath the Night City Budokan Center for Performing Arts. The latter would cause a lot of friction between them and Arasaka's security, and for a good while, the gang would be around pulling pranks for pay and beating up on mimes until the bombs dropped. In 2022, the infamous bombing of Arasaka Tower would take place, completely displacing the gang from their usual haunts and usual activities, and it looked like things were over for the vampires, until a mysterious entity approached the gang. Not much is known about the mysterious benefactor known as Lord Ruthven, just that he brought with him a deep respect for the gang and even deeper pockets. Again, I quote, "Lord Ruthven arrived here just after Night City was bathed in fire and had offered to fund the Philharmonic Vampyres' rebirth. He was a visionary and an artist, plus he had considerable monetary resources. But he had a dark side and many secrets he wouldn't share with us. The individual would also take leadership of the gang, and with his leadership came one new recruitment method, recruitment via torture." I quote again, "In this combat, all adversaries fight to the death. They are too terrified of the torture that awaits cowardice by the hands of Lord Ruthven to do anything else, and they have long since been driven mad by him in his strange, torturous therapy sessions, which earned him their defection from their former gangs. It would eventually come to light that Lord Ruthven's mental faculties were degrading. He was slipping into cyberpsychosis, and with that came a fixation on the news media icon Bess Isis. He would kidnap women and, very poorly, forcibly body sculpt the imprisoned women to fit her likeness, until a group of edge runners dethroned the vampire cyberpsycho. Following Ruthven's forced departure, a fissure within the gang would form. One side would follow the leadership of an individual known as the Master, a leader who facilitated the newly shaped gothic style of the gang and wanted to make a more artistic route to the gang's activities, while the rest would follow Acme, a Night City University student who wanted to return the gang's original roots. The faction following the Master would end up becoming the more visible of the two gangs, yet both factions would remain peaceful. Fun fact, the Master is also the one who put out the job to take out Lord Ruthven. Anyway, today the gang is split in two. The most visible faction, led by the Master, are full-on goth and focus primarily on horror-themed artistic presentations at the Night City Symphony Hall. A smaller faction, led by an NCU student known as Acme, wants to return to the days of grand pranks. Despite the split, most members of the two factions get along. The pranksters enjoy the parties thrown by the goths, and many of the goths join in on the pranking, seeing it as a thrilling form of artistic expression. As of 2077, I'm not sure if the gang is still active, and I can't see any trace of NCU or the old Symphony Hall, and the only suits I can see are corpse walking around. If I find anything out in game, I'll post in the community section here on YouTube. For now, who knows? Remember when I said earlier that the Philharmonic Vampyres had a penchant for beating mimes? Well, the targeting of street performers of all kinds, both from the Vampyres and the other gangs, got so merciless that the street performers of all kinds banded together and formed their own gang, the Julliard. From Night City 2020. As you can guess, it's tough to be a street performer in 2020. The boosters used to just steal your money. Now they steal your instruments and a small family moves into your cello case. They formed as a self-funded, self-protected gang specifically to protect themselves from other gangers. To join, you have to audition and work your way up the ranks. Quoting Night City 2020 on gang operations and funding. 15% of the take from street performances goes to the group. Gang elders are in charge of assigning individual turfs during a weekly sign-up meeting, usually on the weekend. If you're new in town and are selected to join the gang following an audition, you'll sign up for your performance spots last until you rise in society. However, these prime spots would eventually become available to anyone who paid that 15% tax. From Night City 2045, the guild claims 15% of a performer's take. In return, members receive armed protection from aggressive patrons and access to plum performance spots in the city, including the Prize Pick, Night City Plaza. Busking and street performances aren't the only ways to make money either, as the Julliard contracts out its members to perform at parties for local gangs like the Piranhas. Again, I quote, "It also brokers deals with the Piranhas, hiring out members to perform at some of the best parties in Night City. They don't only target the other gangers, though. Rogue street performers are also prime targets, as they're pulling money that could be going into the gang." As according to the Night City 2045 sourcebook, the Julliard Guild controls busking in Night City with a chrome fist. If you're playing a corner or, heaven forbid, an end cart station without permission, the representatives will pay you a visit. The first time is a friendly invitation to join, the second is a reminder, the third time they bring weapons. As of 2045, the gang is led by an individual known as Sebastian Shakespeare McBride, and their usual gathering places are either Night City Plaza or Nightingale Theater. As with the Philharmonic Vampyres, I'm not entirely sure if the Julliard is still active as of 2077 given the lack of mimes hanging around, but there's always someone hanging around with a guitar singing their heart out, and if there's at least one, there can always be more. Alrighty, that should about do it. I wanted to start covering some of the smaller gangs of Night City and first in these kind of double or even triple features depending on how little information there is, as all the major gangs have enough lore to, well, keep a recording going for much longer than I have the time to commit. Also in the works currently is an analysis of living in Night City during the 2040s as an average person, so keep that in your mind as well. And you know, if this was fun for you, you can always give me that cool thumbs up button, and maybe even that awesome little bell icon. Who knows? For now, be safe out there. You know, living on the edge ain't for everyone.